Hey guys, MJ on here. Sorry for not posting recently, but anyways, this video just came out like 9 minutes ago, and I figured I'd react to it. So this is by SCP Foundation Explained or whatever, and this is SCP-974 Treehouse Predator. I haven't gotten this far to the SCP series yet. I'm on 971 right now, but let's get into this.
Imagine this. It's summer vacation and you're a kid. You and your friends are playing in the woods near your neighborhood, just like you've been doing most days during the break from school. One day you spot a treehouse. It's not that high off the ground, and it's very simply built, from leaves, grass, and scraps of wood. You and your friends are curious, so you decide to check it out. Upon investigation, you find a kid in there. He says his name is Billy, and this is his treehouse. You don't recognize him from school, but you figure he just must be new in town. He asks if he can join your group, and wanting to be nice to the new kid, you tell him, okay. You spend the rest of the day playing with him, games like hide and seek, tag, and Red Rover, until it's time for everyone to go home for dinner. Strangely, Billy doesn't seem to leave. He just stays in his treehouse. For the rest of the week, playing with Billy in his treehouse become a regular fixture of your daily routine. But oddly enough, he never comes to hang out at any of your houses, and you never seem to see him anywhere else but in the woods. One day, however, he decides to invite one of your friends, Amy, to hang out with him at the treehouse alone. You think nothing of it, but after that point, you never see Billy again. It's a couple of weeks before you and your friends see Amy again, and when you do, she appears off somehow. She seems to be spending a lot of time in that treehouse. Billy has disappeared, but you and Amy and the rest of the kids keep meeting up to play together in the woods. One day, Amy pulls you aside. She wants you to come meet with her tomorrow at the treehouse, alone. This is typically how an SCP-974 infestation begins, with a mysterious new kid inviting a group of friends to hang out in this crudely made treehouse. But as you might have guessed, this kid isn't a kid. He's SCP-974, a carnivorous monster that only looks like a human child. It can live on small woodland animals, but its preferred prey is kids between the ages of 6 and 12, taking the phrase "you are what you eat" to the next level. The entity will install itself in an area with a sufficient amount of trees, in proximity to a decent population of children. It will then construct a crude treehouse to serve as its nest, and begin befriending groups of between 2 and 5 children.
So it builds its treehouse from its own hand. It doesn't, like, magically build one. Alright.
The creature will engage in normal outdoor games and allow its new friends to come and go as they please, building the trust of its newfound playmates. But then, after about a week, it will select its victim. SCP-974 will single out one member of the group and invite them to the treehouse alone. Whether they accept or deny the invitation is irrelevant, because this is the point where SCP-974 will strike, subduing and then devouring that child. After doing so, the creature will disappear from the area, going into a state of hibernation for roughly 12 days. During that time, it goes through a period of metamorphosis, transforming from whoever it looked like before into an exact likeness of the child it just consumed. SCP-974 will continue this cycle of selecting and catching prey until there are no children left in the surrounding area. While it's initially friendly to children, SCP-974 has an intense fear of any older human beings. The mere presence of a person older than 13 is enough to trigger the creature's fight or flight response, and it will run away.
So it's afraid of adults. I won't mind bringing my shotgun with me into the woods then, if I had a shotgun.
If it sees any adults coming. When running isn't an option, SCP-974 will resort to violence to defend itself. Despite its looks, SCP-974 is much stronger, faster, and more resistant to damage than a child, and it has been known to completely rip adults apart in situations where it felt threatened and cornered. SCP-974 does not appear to be affected by bullets or striking weapons, and the only reliable way to put down an instance seems to be with fire.
Oh, okay. So if I have a lighter, I have deodorant, but no lighter. I have matches. Maybe that'll
When
work.
infestations are discovered in the wild, the normal SCP Foundation protocol is to attempt to capture the creature. But if deadly force is required, agents will set fire to the creature's nest and a portion of the surrounding area until it has been confirmed dead, before covering up the destruction as the result of a regular forest fire. The SCP Foundation was able to capture one instance of SCP-974 and place it in containment, hoping that having one in captivity would provide insight into the creature's origins. It was placed in a lightly wooded enclosure at Zoological Reserve Site-16, where it immediately started constructing multiple treehouse nests from the plant life it found. Initially, the containment of SCP-974 involved offering the creature live human prey. Once every 3 months, a group of 4 children would be brought in accordance with Protocol 12. The children would be given room and board in on-site barracks, and encouraged to explore the enclosure and play with SCP-974.
God, not an ad. Like, oh, fuck you, Reese's. I hate Reese's. Stupid Reese's, I hate.
If 974 had not selected a victim within 5 days, the group of children would be sent away and a new group would be introduced. This system worked for a few years, but as you might expect, the Ethics Committee had a problem with the practice of offering up live children to a deadly anomaly.
I bet they did. They did not like it one bit.
Now, as of January 1st, 2015, the team at Zoological Reserve Site-16 are no longer able to evoke Protocol 12 in order to acquire children. Attempts to use another SCP, SCP-1680, a collection of clones of a missing 8-year-old boy, failed, as SCP-974 refused to eat them. The procedures then changed to only allow small animals to be introduced into the enclosure as prey. While it might seem like this was a good idea that would stop SCP-974 from killing any more children, like a lot of seemingly good changes to containment procedures in the Foundation, this well-intentioned move would ultimately have deadly consequences. SCP-974 at first seemed to behave normally despite being denied its favorite food. But then, on August 16, 2015, while on their weekly sweep of the enclosure, patrol teams found that 974 had destroyed all of the tree houses it had built in its time in containment. The SCP itself was also nowhere to be found. There was something new in the enclosure though, a small oval of disturbed soil. A geological team was called in, and through ground-penetrating radar, it was found that there was a humanoid figure buried there, curled up in a fetal position. This couldn't be SCP-974, could it? The figure was much too long and thin to be anything resembling a human child, but it had to be SCP-974. It was the only living thing in the enclosure. The scientists were intrigued, and they theorized that the SCP might have entered a new life stage. Further scans were conducted over the next 10 days. During that time, the creature never moved from its position, though it did continue to grow. It seemed like it was absorbing nutrients from the surrounding soil. The team decided to exhume the creature to examine it. When they dug it up, they found that SCP-974 had stretched out, now measuring 220 centimeters in length and weighing just 37.4 kilograms. It had no features or orifices of any kind anywhere on its body, and its now pale white skin was covered in some kind of sticky mucus that, when examined, was found to contain a previously undiscovered enzyme. The creature was alive, but barely. It wasn't breathing, and its heartbeat was extremely slow, almost to the point of being undetectable. SCP-974 was examined for an additional 4 weeks, after which it died and was sent for dissection. Some of the scientists and researchers at Zoological Site-16 were disappointed to hear about 974's death. As vicious and feral as the creature was, they developed a certain fondness for it and its many tree houses. Luckily, it wouldn't be too much longer until a new
Just because it looks like a kid doesn't mean it is a kid, you idiots.
Specimen was obtained. On October 16, 2016, a group of no less than 7 instances of SCP-974 were discovered near a major American city. The containment team was forced to kill 6 of the anomalies in the attempts to capture them, but 1 instance survived and was taken to Zoological Site-16. As was mandated, The area was burned, and Foundation counterintelligence disseminated a cover story about a forest fire caused by an improperly extinguished campfire. The new SCP-974 was, like the original one, placed in the enclosure and denied human prey. Also like the first one, this 974 buried itself after being denied its preferred meals for several months. The decision was made to leave the SCP underground longer than the first instance, to see what it might become if this developmental stage wasn't interrupted. On January 25, 2017, the creature finally dug itself free from the earth. Now designated SCP-974-A, it was far more aggressive than any instance of 974 had ever been before. As soon as it was free from the dirt, it made a beeline straight for the nearest monitoring station. It ripped the roof off and tore the 6 team members stationed there to shreds in just 90 seconds. When the response team arrived 15 minutes later, only 12% of the human remains were able to be recovered. But, strangely enough, it at first seemed like one of the team had been spared. Georgia Stone, one of the monitoring team, was severely injured, but apparently in a stable condition. Disoriented, she approached the response team, begging for assistance and urging them to take her out of the enclosure. But the team was skeptical. They knew that SCP-974 could become an exact copy of any child it consumed, so it followed that the fully grown SCP-974-A might be able to copy adults. They asked Georgia questions in order to confirm her identity, but she was unable to answer them.
Another ad? Oh, thank goodness. Another Reese's. Good. I actually like Kit Kats. Red Bull. Oh, hell no, I'm not drinking that.
Being found out, SCP-974, still mimicking Georgia, attacked the response team. They'd been armed with flamethrowers, but unfortunately, on top of its resistance to damage, the adult form of 974 didn't seem to be afraid of, or harmed by, fire. The team was at a loss for how to kill this thing, or even subdue it long enough to get out safely. SCP-974-A was tearing through the members of the team like they were made out of paper. Thinking quickly, one member of the response team, a guard named Emilio, pulled out one of his standard-issue Foundation hand grenades. When SCP-974-A came at him, he pulled the pin and, holding the grenade, shoved his arm into the creature's open mouth. While the explosion destroyed Emilio's arm, it didn't even break the skin of SCP-974-A. However, it did result in serious damage to its internal organs, which finally killed it. Following its death, an autopsy was conducted, revealing enough about the creature that a new file of effective methods of extermination was able to be created. After this event, the protocols for SCP-974 containment were completely overhauled. Any instances of SCP-974-A seen in the wild are to be killed as quickly as possible. More disturbingly though, the Ethics Committee rescinded their previous decision, and any instances of 974 that are brought into containment are to be provided with human prey again. Letting SCP-974 kill children might not be a very humane way of keeping it contained, but given how much more aggressive and hard to kill this SCP's adult form is, any option that stops the creature's metamorphosis from happening is likely the best option in the long run. So remember, if you're ever out in the woods and see a crudely constructed treehouse, perhaps think twice about how innocent it is. There could be something hungry lurking inside.